Please close your eyes. Find the most comfortable position, and let your body slowly relax, as if sinking into warm water. Let your breath become deep and long, let your shoulders drop, let every muscle forget the day's toil. Now, let us embark on a journey of the mind. The destination is not a distant place in space, but a distant shore in time, 2,000 years ago, the 1st century. Do not be anxious, this is not a history lesson. We need not remember any dates or names. I am merely your guide, taking your hand, leading you to see, in that age when the stars above were no different from those we see now, how the ancients of our earth awoke, how they labored, how they loved, and how they slept. Tonight, the entire world exists within your breath. Inhale slowly, exhale gently. Let the dust of time settle softly upon your eyelids. Let us begin by the Mediterranean Sea. On the banks of the Tiber River in the Apennine Peninsula, there lies Rome. Listen, the clamor of the daytime squares has faded, only the waters of the Tiber flow on, tirelessly. The 1st century AD finds Rome in the late youth of its long history. Octavian, the first citizen hailed as Augustus by the Senate, had only just draped the purple robe of empire over this republic, weary from too many civil wars. If it is the dead of night, moonlight would spill upon the newly completed grand marble buildings. Augustus once proudly declared that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. You can imagine those colossal columns, casting long, deep shadows in the night, like silent giants guarding the eternal city. Let us step into an ordinary dwelling. The walls are adorned with brightly colored frescoes, painted with mythological plants and fruits, their hues seeming to radiate a warm glow even in the darkness. The family has just dispersed after their evening meal, olive pits and grape seeds still scattered on the floor. The master of the house might be a simple merchant, just now lying down, covered with a coarse but warm woolen blanket. In his dreams, perhaps he still contemplates the merchant ship set to sail tomorrow, a vessel carrying amphorae of wine towards distant Greece or Egypt. In this age, the Mediterranean had become a Roman lake, pirates were swept from the seas, and all roads led to Rome. Even in dreams, the paths were flat and safe, but Rome was not all glory. In the corners of the city, there are sleepless slaves. They curl up in damp cells, bodies bearing the welts of the day's lashings. They listen to the distant echoes of music from their master's banquet, to the fading roars of beasts from the daytime arena, silently yearning for the forests of Gaul or the swamps of Germania, wherever their homes may be. And far away on the northern frontier, say, along the Rhine, a Roman sentry, wrapped in his cloak, peers across the river in the cold wind. Across the water lies the dense, unconquered Germanic forest, where ancient trees tower, said to be haunted by witches and unicorns. Early in this very century, in the year 9 AD, 3 elite Roman legions were ambushed in the Teutoburg forest and were lost forever on those muddy paths. From then on, Romans knew that not every place could be conquered. So this sentry is tense, gripping his short sword tightly. The sound of wind through the treetops might be mistaken for a Germanic war chant. Gradually, even that tension fades. Whether it's the desire for wealth, the longing for freedom, or the fear of war, all are enveloped and diluted by the boundless night. Rome sleeps, cradled by the Tiber's lullaby, by the occasional ripple in the Trevi fountain. Good night, Rome. Riding the monsoon winds, we journey east. Leaving the azure of the Mediterranean, crossing the yellow sands of Central Asia, we arrive at the other end of Eurasia, Oyan. This is the capital of the Eastern Han dynasty. In the 1st century of the East, it too experienced immense change. The Western Han had just ended, briefly interrupted by Wang Meng's Xian dynasty. Emperor Guangwu, Lu Xiao, had recently restored the Han lineage, henceforth known as the Eastern Han. Luoyang City teems with the vitality of reconstruction. Now, in the dead of night, all is still. You don't hear the heavy echoes of Roman stone architecture here. Instead, the air smells of wood and loss. The residential wards, Li Feng, are arranged as neatly as squares on a chessboard, each enclosed by high walls and gates. After sunset, with the curfew in effect, the streets are empty, save for the rhythmic talk of the night watchman's clapper and his drawn-out call. The weather is dry, beware fire, let us climb over an earthen wall and enter an ordinary family of 5. The roof is tiled with gray-green tiles, the window lattice pasted with mulberry bark paper. Moonlight filters through the paper window, casting a soft halo on the packed earth floor inside. The master of the house, who spent the day plowing, now sleeps soundly, the marks of hemp rope and traces of soil still on his palms. The bed is simple, just a wooden platform covered with a straw mat, but for a body tired from a day's labor, this is heaven. His daily ration is about 5 or 6 shing of millet, just enough to fill his belly and fuel the next day's work. In his dreams, perhaps he still worries about this year's taxes, whether the family pig will grow to sufficient size, or if a letter has arrived from his son conscripted to guard a distant border. His wife hasn't fully fallen asleep. By the moonlight, she touches her child's forehead. The child has kicked off the blanket, revealing 2 dirty little feet. During the day, he was chasing crickets along the field ridges, or feeling for fish in the village pond. The games of Han children were not so different from children today, except they might play with small pottery pigs or dogs, or a kuju ball woven from hemp rope. Deeper in the palace, the emperor might still be reviewing the last memorial. The emperors of the 1st century, whether in Rome or Han, bore immense responsibility. The Han emperor was responsible for the land's harvest. If an eclipse or earthquake occurred, he had to issue an edict of sins to examine his own virtue. In Luoyang at this time, a particular scent can be detected: the fragrance of ink, the smell of pulp. It was during this century that a great invention was quietly spreading. Although tradition places Kailuan's improvement of papermaking in 105 AD, by the end of this century, coarse hemp paper was beginning to be used in some places, replacing heavy bamboo slips. Those slips, densely inscribed with clerical script, were strung together into volumes and piled on scholars' desks. When wind blew, the slips would knock together, producing a crisp, pleasant sound like rain pattering on bamboo. All has fallen silent. The crickets in the fields chirp for a while, then pause. The bells of Luoyang City drift faintly, almost imperceptibly, on the night breeze. This ancient agricultural people sink into deep slumber in the embrace of the earth. They believe that when they wake, the sun will rise as usual, and the crops will continue to grow, leaving the bustling capitals. We arrive at the crossroads of the world, the Silk Road. In the 1st century, this vast Central Asian hinterland was not unclaimed land. Between the 2 great empires of Rome and Han existed 2 other equally powerful empires: Parthia, called Anqi in Chinese chronicles, and Kushan. Let us first alight on the Iranian plateau. This is Parthian territory. They are superb horsemen and the middlemen controlling the central section of Silk Road trade. Here, at a caravan inn, a herd of camels and donkeys huddle together for the night, warm breath steaming from their nostrils, the bells around their necks jingling occasionally. Merchants, wrapped in thick woolen blankets, sit around a dying campfire. They've just inventoried their goods: silk from the land of Han, spices from India, glassware from Rome. Tomorrow, they will cross this bandit-infested desert towards the next oasis. An old Persian merchant reclines, smoking a water pipe. The water in the bowl gurgles softly, like a low chant. He gazes at the star-filled sky. The stars here are larger and brighter than those over Luoyang or Rome, seeming close enough to touch. He prays silently, for safe passage tomorrow, for fair dealing. In this vast and cruel desert, simply being alive is a stroke of luck. Continuing east, crossing the Tsongling, today's Pamir Mountains, we enter the territory of the Kushan Empire. The Kushans are descendants of the Yuezhi, who rose to power during this century, conquering northern India and vast regions of Central Asia. The cultural fusion here is remarkably unique. You might see a Greek-style temple housing a statue of the Buddha, people inscribing edicts in Kharosthi script while wearing the clothes of Central Asian nomads. In a stupa near Peshawar, a bhikkhu, Buddhist monk, is still awake. He lights a small oil lamp and softly chants before a palm leaf manuscript. The sutras speak of compassion and tranquility, of letting go of attachments. During this century, Buddhism undergoes a major transformation, shifting from individual practice towards the Mahayana, emphasizing universal salvation. The bhikkhu's chanting is low and long, like distant thunder, like the droning of a bee. Perhaps it is this very sound that soothes countless weary souls along the Silk Road. Whether envoys heading east or truth-seekers journeying west, they share the same solitude and hope under the same starry sky. The wind rises, stirring the tent curtains. Fine desert sand is lifted, sliding like water along the ridges of dunes, emitting a faint, barely audible rustle. It is the desert turning in its sleep, time itself flowing. Our journey must also take us to a place insignificant at the time, yet destined to influence the next 2 millennia, the province of Judea, small places called Bethlehem and Nazareth. At the dawn of the 1st century, this was merely an ordinary, troubled province in the eastern reaches of the Roman Empire. People lived under the watchful eyes of Roman garrisons, awaiting the coming of a Messiah. By the Sea of Galilee, fishermen have just finished their day's work and are mending their nets on the shore. The lake glimmers with silvery scales under the moonlight, lapping against the pebbles. The night here is very quiet, only the sound of water and insects. Around 30 AD, a young carpenter/rabbi named Jesus began preaching novel ideas in the countryside. He spoke of love, forgiveness, and the kingdom of heaven. He said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Decades later, his deeds and teachings would be spread far and wide by his disciples. But during the long night of this 1st century, Christianity was just sprouting, like a mustard seed in a wheat field, small, humble, and unknown. The earliest Christians often met in catacombs, or at someone's private dinner table, breaking bread, raising a cup, praying in low voices. Their voices were so soft, fearful of being heard by neighbors, yet in that age of violence and oppression, these whispers were like tiny candles in the darkness, warm and steadfast. The temple in Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans towards the end of this century, in 70 AD, and the Jewish people began their forced dispersion across the world. But in this moment's night, let us imagine it still intact. Moonlight falls upon the massive stone walls of Herod's temple, casting dappled shadows. Occasionally, a priest's shofar sounds, distant and forlorn, reminding us that no wall, however strong, can withstand the tides of fate. Let us pause here a while. Feel the sanctity and sorrow of this land. Its night air carries the fragrance of olive oil and the sweetness of fig trees. Beyond the centers of great empires, in other corners of the world, life proceeds according to its own rhythms. In Alexandria, Egypt, the great lighthouse blazes ceaselessly, guiding ships across the Mediterranean. Though it has suffered fires, the library remains a treasury of knowledge. Scholars copy ancient papyrus rolls by candlelight, texts of Euclidean geometry, Homeric epics. Outside the window, a murmur of voices in various tongues: Greek, Latin, Hebrew, Egyptian. In Britannia, recently conquered by Rome, Roman-style baths and basilicas are being constructed in the burgeoning trading post of Londinium. Further north, the native Celts still dwell in circular stone houses. Druid priests conduct mysterious rites in oak groves, moonlight filtering through the leaves onto their white robes. In India, under Kushan rule, commerce thrives. People trade not only goods but also ideas. Astronomical observations are made. Mathematicians work towards the concept of zero, though its formal appearance is centuries away. The seeds of intellect are sown in every corner of the world. People are doing the same thing, living and then sleeping. Whether a senator in his Roman marble villa, or a farmer in his Han Dynasty earthen house, whether a Parthian archer on horseback, or a scribe in Alexandria, whether a Jewish priest who has just lost his temple, or a Buddhist monk who has just embraced new ideas. They all lie down, close their eyes, their breath slows, their heartbeat deepens. They all dream. In their dreams, perhaps there is the smoke from their hometown kitchen, loved ones long passed away, the childhood's dream, a peace never known. Let us go further, deeper into the details history books overlook. In Rome, the Colosseum is not yet built, but the roars of the Ludi and the Circus Maximus have already shaken the daytime sky. At night, the wild beasts are locked in iron cages. Perhaps they dream of the African plains, of running free. In the gladiator training schools, Ludi, scarred slaves lie on straw pallets, some groaning softly, some praying silently, some already snoring loudly. Tomorrow may bring mortal combat, but for now, at least the night is calm. In the Roman Curia, the day's fierce debates have ended. The empty hall sees only moonlight streaming through high windows onto the mosaic floor, depicting scenes of Romulus and Remus suckling the she-wolf, the founding myth of Rome. Across the Tiber, in the Jewish quarter, a family reads softly from the scrolls of the law by a dim oil lamp, their voices continuous as the river, awaiting the Messiah, awaiting a future free from subjugation. In Han, besides farmers, there are artisans. The forge fires in the blacksmith shop are banked, but residual warmth remains. Finished plowshares and swords are neatly arranged on racks. The blacksmith sleeps in the small room behind the shop, his wife still spinning hemp by moonlight, the spinning wheel humming softly, a lullaby in itself. Outside the city, at the Imperial Academy, Taishue, the students have pored over the classics by day. By night, they may still argue the merits of the new text versus old text schools. Their rooms are piled high with bamboo scrolls. Someone recites the Book of Songs in his sleep. Guan guan cry the ospreys. The words are indistinct, mingling with the croaking of frogs outside the window. Further away, at a relay station, couriers change horses without dismounting, racing day and night, carrying the emperor's decrees to the empire's frontiers. The crack of the courier's whip rings sharp in the night air, then vanishes swiftly into the darkness. The Silk Road was not one, but northern, central, and southern routes. On the northern route steps, descendants of the Xiongnu, the northern Xiongnu had migrated west, but other nomads remained active, sleep soundly in their tents, their horses just outside, ready to face wolf packs. The night wind howls across the prairie, carrying the scent of grass and livestock dung. Embers still glow in the center of the tent, occasionally sparking, illuminating the bows and arrows hung on supports, and the pelts of hunted game. Women and children sleep deepest inside, the man near the entrance, his knife within reach. This alertness is bred in the bone, even in sleep, ears are pricked for any sound outside. On the southern route oases, like Khotan or Lulan, people live in mud brick houses, with grapevines and apricot trees planted around. Water from the snow melt of the mountains flows day and night through irrigation channels, a pleasant gurgle, the sound of life itself. A Khotanese merchant, having sold gems brought from India during the day and bought silk and spices in return, now dreams of his next profit. His wife gently strokes her rounded belly, the child within giving a kick, new life, new hope. Further south, across the waves of the Indian Ocean, on the Deccan Plateau under the Satavahana dynasty, Buddhist stupas stand silent. The great stupa at Amaravati is under expansion. Masons carve exquisite reliefs by day, depicting Jataka tales. At night, they return to their humble huts, drinking a little rice wine to ease the day's fatigue. Some sing softly to simple instruments, songs of the Buddha's former lives, tales of sacrificing oneself to feed a starving tigress. The singing is desolate yet compassionate, drifting on the night air. Further north, while the Kushan Emperor Kanishka may not yet have ascended the throne, the fourth Buddhist council is brewing. In the monasteries of Kashmir, the sound of debating monks continues until late, then the whole valley falls silent, save for the flow of the Indus River, and the occasional cry of a wild beast. Let us not forget Africa. Up the Nile, the kingdom of Kush, Meroe, still exists, with its own pharaohs, its own pyramids, smaller and steeper than Egypt's. The iron workshops of Meroe blaze by day, smelted iron traded far and wide. At night, the smiths sleep on simple beds, surrounded by piles of ore and charcoal. The Nile flows silently under the moon, hippos occasionally surfacing, blowing enormous spouts of water, the sound startlingly loud in the stillness. Further west, on the fringes of the Sahara, Berber caravans rest, using camel-hide tents and burning dried dung for warmth. Tomorrow they will cross the desert towards Ghana. Early kingdoms existed, though the later Ghana Empire hadn't yet formed, to trade for gold and salt. Desert nights are bitterly cold, the stars incredibly bright. The guide checks his bearings against the North Star, then wraps himself tightly and sinks into slumber. At the other edge of Europe, north of the Danube, Germanic peoples live in villages deep within forests. Their houses are built of timber and thatch, long structures where people and livestock shelter under one roof. Cattle chew their cud in the byre, emitting low moos. Children sleep on piles of hay, covered with animal hides. Tribal elders may still murmur around the hearth, discussing tomorrow's hunt, intertribal disputes, or tales of the gods. Names like Odin and Thor are uttered with reverence. Further north, in Scandinavia, the long winter nights begin. The ancestors of the Vikings huddle indoors around the fire, telling heroic sagas, their dragon-proud longships drawn up on the shore, awaiting next year's voyages. The aurora borealis sometimes dances in the sky, ribbons of green and purple light, dreamlike and fantastic. They believe it is the gleam of divine weapons, crossing the Eurasian steppe, in the far east of the Korean peninsula. This is the eve of the Three Kingdoms period. Goguryeo, Beach, and Silla have not yet fully formed into centralized states, but tribal confederations exist. By the banks of the Yalu River, in the early Goguryeo capital of Jalban, people live in pit houses warmed by undal flues. At night, they listen to the sound of pine forests, and the occasional distant tiger's roar. In the south, the Samhan confederacies, Jinhan, Mahan, Bayanhan, cultivate rice and fish the sea. In coastal fishing villages, waves crash on rocks, the sound ceaseless. Fishermen sleep in their net sheds, dreaming of catches filling their boats. On the Japanese archipelago, this is the late Yayoi period. Rice cultivation is widespread, bronze and iron tools are in use. In moated settlements like Yashinagari, people live in pit houses with thick thatched roofs. At night, from a distance, points of firelight glow from each dwelling's smoke hole, like stars scattered on the ground. Someone might still be making pottery, the whir of the wheel thin and intermittent. Watchtowers surround the village, guards peer alertly into the dark forest, wary of enemies or beasts. The moon rises, illuminating the placid surface of the paddy fields, occasionally broken by the plop of a frog. Across the islands of Southeast Asia, the southern maritime Silk Road is forming. Funan, in modern Cambodia/Vietnam, is an important transit point. People live in stilt houses, livestock below, family above. At night, the Mekong River swells with the tide, slowly flooding the banks and receding. Fishermen pull small boats, spearing fish by torchlight. The flames reflect, dancing and shimmering on the water like countless spirits. From a distant temple, the chants of Brahmin priests intoning the Vedas, ancient and mysterious, drift through the jungle to the sea. On the Indonesian islands, people have mastered the monsoon winds, navigating outrigger canoes and simple sails between islands, trading spices, resins, and rare woods. At night, they camp on beaches, elders telling sea stories around campfires, navigating by stars. Wind is their companion. Let us turn our gaze back to Rome, to finer details of daily life. In Pompeii, still prosperous, though Vesuvius will destroy it in 79 AD, bakers are already up, preparing the day's bread. Their slaves knead dough, the scent of wheat fills the pre-dawn air. The baker calculates how many loaves for the nobles, how many for the plebeians, and a portion for the gladiator school. The oven's fire illuminates his swarthy face, sweat trickling down his cheeks. Nearby, a few drunken Roman soldiers just left a tavern. The barkeep cleans up, ready to close. His wife comes downstairs, softly complaining about his late return. He smiles, blows out the oil lamp. Another day's toil ends in Athens. Greece, though its political stature has waned, the afterglow of philosophy and art lingers. A Stoic philosopher writes late by lamplight, contemplating the nature of the cosmos and human happiness. Outside his window stands the Parthenon, its marble columns appearing even more sacred and solemn under the moonlight. He glances up, filled with reverence for ancient wisdom. On a street corner, an old woman prays to the moon for the safe return of her son from a long sea voyage. His ship might be somewhere on the Aegean. The crew takes turns at watch, gazing at the same moon, thinking of home and hot meals. In the Egyptian countryside, the Nile flood has just receded, leaving the land moist and fertile. Farmers have sown wheat and barley, and now use the lull to repair houses and tools. Evenings, they sit in their courtyards, drinking barley beer, eating figs. Their children chase fireflies, laughter ringing out. An elder sits apart, smoking a water pipe, reminiscing about floods of his youth, when the river rose higher and harvests were better. In the distance, the pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx have already stood for over 2,000 years. They gaze mutely upon these farmers, these descendants of the pharaohs. Under the moon, their shadows stretch long and long. The art of the Parthian Empire, the twin cities of Ctesiphon and Seleucia face each other across the Tigris. They are centers of politics and commerce. At night, the bridge across the Tigris is closed, lights from both banks reflect in the water, gently shimmering with the current. In the palace, the king might have just finished hearing a report from an envoy who came from the land of Han, filled with curiosity about that distant Eastern Empire. He has his scribes recorded, then lies down, contemplating how to maintain this vast realm spanning Iran and Mesopotamia. In the market district's caravanserai, merchants from Arabia and India haggle late into the night, using gestures and mixed languages, finally reaching a deal. Tomorrow, the goods will be loaded onto wagons, continuing westward. The Kushan Empire's territory extended into the Indus Valley. In the Gandhara region, Buddhist art was fusing with Greek styles, producing the earliest anthropomorphic images of the Buddha. These statues have Hellenistic curly hair and drapery, but their expressions hold Eastern compassion. In the sculptors' workshops, artisans work meticulously by day, covering their unfinished pieces at night to protect them from dust. Some sleep in the workshops, dreaming of the Buddha's form. In nearby villages, ordinary farmers still use ancient Vedic methods of worship, pouring milk and ghee into sacred fires. The flames crackle, blue smoke rises into the night sky, mingling with the stars. There were also vast expanses of the world untouched by humans at this time. Through the Siberian taiga, reindeer migrate, moonlight on the snow reflecting a silver sheen. Wolves shadow the herds, waiting for an opportunity. No humans, only the law of nature. Across the Pacific Islands, the ancestors of the Polynesians had already begun their great voyages of discovery, navigating by stars, winds, and currents, seeking new homelands. In the 1st century, they may have reached Fiji or Tonga. At night, their outrigger canoes rest in sheltered coral lagoons. Sailors lie on deck, gazing at the Southern Cross, their guiding light. In the Americas, the Maya civilization is in its late preclassic period. Teotihuacan is on the rise. In the jungles of Mesoamerica, priests observe Venus and the moon, calculating precise calendars. Their pyramids cast long shadows under the moon. The stones may still bear the stains of daytime sacrifice, but the silence of night covers all, only the wind moaning low through temple corridors. Back to the art of Eurasia, high in the Pamir Mountains, a caravan struggles to cross a treacherous pass. Wrapped in thick sheepskin coats, breathing thin air, their camels' hooves slip on ice and snow. This is a dangerous passage, but also the gateway to wealth. The leader checks his bearings by the North Star, encouraging everyone to persevere. Just beyond this pass lies a warm camp. They speak little, only the sound of footsteps, labored breathing, and the howl of the wind. Yet, amidst this extreme cold and hardship, there is a strange tranquility, as if time itself has frozen, leaving only the primal struggle for existence. On the warm Indian Ocean, the monsoon winds are favorable. A Roman merchant ship sails from the Red Sea towards India. It carries gold and silver, glassware, and wine, to be exchanged for pepper, gems, and silk. Sailors take turns resting, lying on deck, listening to the water rushing past the hull and the of the sails. A young sailor on his first voyage feels homesick, but more excited. He imagines the land of India, its elephants, its naked wise men. He lies awake long, until the moon is high, finally lulled to sleep by the sound of the waves. Besides these travelers, there are those who stay rooted in one place their whole lives. For instance, in a Roman villa rustica, the landowner surveys his estate, watching slaves harvest grapes. At night, he enjoys fresh grapes and wine, reclining on a couch, listening to a slave play the lyre. He might feel a touch of loneliness, his friends being in Rome, but he also cherishes this peace. The night sky here is clearer, the stars more numerous than in the city. His slaves, meanwhile, crowd into cramped barracks, some secretly sing songs of their homelands, others pray for a better life in the next isle on the borders of Han China. The Great Wall has stood for centuries. Conscripts on the beacon towers shiver in the night wind, staring north, alert for any suspicious fire. A gust of wind makes them grip their weapons nervously, but it's often a false alarm. On such nights, they long for home, for parents, wives, and children. Some carve their names and origins into the wall, hoping one day to return. Others write letters home with charcoal on wooden slips, tears blur the words as they write. Inside the wall, couriers also ride day and night, bearing urgent news from the frontier. The sound of hooves rings sharp on the night roads, startling birds from their roosts in the roadside woods, sending them fluttering into the night sky. On Rome's frontiers, before Hadrian's Wall in Britannia, Roman legions are stationed along the Roman roads. In the fortress at Eboracum, York, soldiers sleep in communal barracks, their weapons hung on walls, ready for use. Some are on watch, pacing back and forth, their armor glinting coldly in the moonlight. Not far away are the small villages of the native Britons, who view the Romans with a mix of fear and curiosity. They too often lie awake, listening to the unfamiliar bugle calls from the camp, wondering what tomorrow will bring. Every corner of the world has its night, its dreams. In the Sahara, a lost Tuareg caravan, surviving on their last water, searches for an oasis. At night, they halt. An elder studies the stars, trying to find the right direction. Younger men argue in low voices, some begin to despair, but the elder silences them, telling them to sleep, regain strength, and continue searching tomorrow. On the edge of life and death, the stillness of night seems especially precious, offering respite and space for thought. To eye in an Indian jungle, an elephant moves slowly in the moonlight, unridden, free. It reaches a river, drinks, then sprays water over its body with its trunk, bathing, its massive form rolling in the water, startling a flock of water birds. After its bath, it walks to a mango tree, rubs its body against the trunk to scratch an itch, then lies down and slowly falls asleep. Its breath is deep and slow, like the distant beat of a bass drum. Returning to humanity, let us focus on specific individuals. In Rome, a girl about to be married has her mother preparing her dowry, checking linens, jewelry, nerves piece by piece. The girl lies in bed, nervous and excited. She has never seen her future husband, only knows he is a soldier, often at the frontier. Her heart races, but as night deepens, she finally sleeps. In her dream, she sees an olive grove and a blurry figure. In Han China, a scholar preparing for the imperial exams recites the Amalexan classic of filial piety over and over by lamplight. His eyes are bloodshot, but he dares not sleep, for this exam determines his future. But exhaustion overcomes him, his head nods, and finally, he falls asleep slumped over his bamboo slips. The candle burns out, a wisp of smoke disperses to Ian Parthia. A young slave girl serves her masters by day, retreating to her small corner at night. She has a secret. She is secretly learning to write, scratching simple words on broken pottery shards with charcoal. She writes freedom, homeland, mother. Then, carefully hiding the shards in a crevice, she curls up and sleeps. In her dreams, she returns to her small village on the Iranian plateau, where almond blossoms bloom, and her mother holds her close to Ayan Kushan, an old woman's son, a merchant, left for distant lands a year ago, with no word since. Daily she visits the stupa to pray, offering flowers and oil lamps. At night, she sits on her threshold, gazing at the stars, softly reciting the Buddha's name. She believes that wherever her son is, the Buddha will protect him. Her eyes are clouded with age, but her gaze is steady. She recites, over and over, her voice growing fainter, until she falls asleep on the doorstep, prayer beads still in her hand. All these stories, all these scenes, occurred in the same span of time, the 1st century. Back then, there was no electricity, no internet, no roar of machinery. Night was truly night, darkness was pure darkness. As people slept, what reached their ears was the wind, the rain, the chirping of insects, and the breathing of their families. That world is far from us, 2,000 years distant. Yet it is also very close, for the human heart has not changed. We still face life's hardships, still hold hope for tomorrow, still seek peace at night. As you lie here now, wrapped in your soft blanket, you are that farmer on his earth and calling him Woyang. You are that slave curled in his squalid Roman cell. You are that merchant adrift on the Silk Road. You are that fisherman gazing at the stars by the Sea of Galilee. Tonight, 2,000 years later, on their behalf, and on your own, sleep well. Leave the day's troubles in the forums of Rome. Leave tomorrow's worries in the fields of Han. Leave the weariness of the journey to the desert wind. Let it all scatter on the breeze. Let it all settle in the riverbed of history. Now, slowly bring your awareness back from those distant times. Feel the mattress beneath you, the blanket covering you, this warm and safe space of the present. Yet you can still retain that ancient peace you brought back. Inhale, imagine you breathe in the warm wind of the Mediterranean. Exhale, gently blow away all tension, like a Han watchman extinguishing his lantern. Inhale, imagine you drink the cool water of the Nile. Exhale, feel yourself becoming level, like a Silk Road dune smoothed by the wind. You need not think, need not remember. Only feel. Feel your body grow heavy, heavy as 2,000 years of history, sinking deep into the mattress. Feel your eyelids grow light, light as a feather from a Parthian caravan, floating towards the stars. Sleep now. The world sleeps. The 1st century sleeps. The clamor fades, only the river of stars shines on. Good night. May the long night be dreamless, or may you have the sweetest dreams.